everyone, and welcome back to Reading Light, the podcast shining a light on various book topics, subjects, discussions, comments, questions, concerns, the whole 9 yards, perhaps. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the new episode for this week. I hope everyone is doing pretty well. I'm pretty excited for this episode. We will be, I'll introduce it in a second, but, actually, you know, because you've read the title, so that's kind of dumb, but anyways, I hope your week is going well. I don't really have much for this intro. I really do sometimes struggle with how do I ease into it and get my footing when recording sometimes, but it's not the end of the world, I guess. It's still nice to yap like this for just a bit. Oh, I do have another beverage with me. I think I forgot to do this in at least the last episode or last few episodes, but I am trying to have a fun beverage. Well, this one's not fun, actually. We've, I think, stopped our fun beverages for a second because it's just a bottle of water, but don't worry, I won't be gurgling or drinking it in the microphone, unlike the Pepsi I did that one day. That was weird, but yes, I'm drinking water. I hope you all have your perhaps beverages, maybe snacks, maybe lunch, maybe dinner. I guess it depends when you're sort of listening to this, but I hope whatever you're doing right now is exactly what you want to be doing. So anyways, I guess let's get into our episode for the week. As you saw by the title, we are talking about movie adaptations of books. I'm very excited about this topic as someone who absolutely adores movies, and I absolutely adore books. So this is really kind of fun stuff. I do have a sort of list here that I hope is kind of interesting to hear about, to hear me yap and ramble about. This is, I tried to do a definitive list. This maybe is not super definitive, and I hope I don't ruffle feathers with this list. I know people are very protective of books that become movies, and they tend to have a lot of strong opinions on them. I especially remember this back in the YA dystopian days, or not even YA dystopian, but also YA romances, when it felt like every movie in the theater was based on a book or something. And people would be, it was very strong feelings about, oh, the book's better, and the movie did this wrong, and the movie changed this, and why would they change that? Why couldn't they just adapt it one for one or something? But I think there are still some gems that have come out of the whole idea of adapting books into movies. It is something that I feel like has kind of slowed down, and I do hope it picks back up because it was quite fun. It was a really fun time when I remember I would kind of let the movie theater dictate what I was reading next. If I saw something was going to be a movie, I thought, well, I'll read the book. Sure, that's the next thing I read, and I'll give it a go. And whether or not I actually saw the movie or anything, it was still kind of a fun way to get my hands on books and specific genres and just kind of explore it. And it was a good time. I remember it fondly. Maybe it was hell for other people, but I remember kind of enjoying being able to just pick up books and know that it's going to become a movies or even a TV series. That's kind of been the hot new thing, I think, is putting everything into either movies or limited series or something like that. So that was a fun time, and I still stand by, I think, quite a few good movies came out of it. So I'm hoping to explore those here. I would love to hear, of course, everyone's opinions or your concerns or disagreements, perhaps, of my sort of ranking. And, well, it's not even really a ranking. It is just a list. This is in no particular order, so I'm not saying one is better than the other, but these are ones that I still liked and are fond of, and I find myself returning to. And I also, typically for all these, enjoy the source material as well. So these are just some good adaptations, I think, that Hollywood produced. So I guess let's just get then right into the list. The first one I have written down, and as I said, this is in no ranked order or anything. It's no particular order, I guess I should say. But the first one on here I have is Paper Towns, which I know is probably going to be super controversial. And I remember when I liked this movie back, like, when it came out, I remember that being a controversial thing, like, to begin with, because I knew so many people who, like, despised it. But it was a fun time. It is quite different in some regards from the book. I always am thrown off by, like, the timeline and how the characters maybe are portrayed and such. But I felt that it was still kind of like a nice adaptation, and I felt that some of the themes and ideas come through in certain ways and they don't come through in other ways. It's kind of hard to maybe explain, I'll admit, because there is still that core concept of, like, you're falling in love with the idea of someone and you get caught up in someone, and perhaps, you know, your manic pixie dream girl is not what it turns out to be. So I remember those kind of ideas, and I felt there was also then quite a little bit more appreciation on, like, the friendship aspect and, like, honoring your friends and realizing the people you need are the ones who are around you, not the ones who send you on a wild goose chase. So, and the book definitely, of course, had those elements too. I remember them being a little bit stronger in the movie, perhaps, but I hope I'm not misremembering that. Does anyone else remember that? So, I do feel, though, in the film, I remember thinking this when I rewatched it recently, that some of the characters do feel a little disjointed, and I don't know if, like, the casting aspect was the super best. I get why they did it. It is sort of like a period piece. It is very much a sign of the times when you really consider who was in it. But it kind of, I feel in the end there, the characters maybe kind of suffered a little bit. But I think overall it is just such a fun time. And I think it's one anyone can kind of enjoy. I remember when it came out on DVD, I got it for Christmas. And I asked my family, I was like, do you guys want to, like, watch it? You want to watch it with me? And they happily agreed, and they thought it was really fun. They were laughing pretty hard with it. They kind of liked the ideas, and they thought it was just kind of like a fun teen movie kind of thing, and I liked that. I liked that, and I think that was something good that it kind of gave in some regards. I do think it is one that's enjoyable, whether you care about the book or author or whatnot. My next sort of adaptation, well, not sort of, it is an adaptation of a book. It lives in that similar realm of John Green novels, and you can probably guess then where this is going. But yes, my next, I would say probably one of my favorite adaptations of a book is The Fault in Our Stars. I know it maybe is not aging the best, and it is a little cheesy, but I felt still, even as I've rewatched it as an adult, that the chemistry I felt was pretty great for the cast. I think the characters were portrayed pretty well, maybe not as in-depth, and I think that's maybe something we'll see with a lot of movies that are taken from books, is that you can't get as in-depth with certain aspects that you maybe want to overall, but I did feel this movie did a pretty dang good job. It definitely upset me in the theaters. It is still one where, even as an adult, if I reread the book or watch the movie, I do feel like that dread in my chest, which may seem so cheesy and silly, but I still enjoy it. I think the cast was pretty excellent. As I said, though, stuff has not aged super well, given some of the circumstances around it, but it was casted pretty well, and it's still a book and movie that I think I kind of return to in certain ways. So definitely one that I enjoyed, and I still think of that whole, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was when they're drinking champagne in Amsterdam, and what did he say? He, like, says something about drinking the stars or something. I think, I can't remember the quote exactly, but I see the scene in my head every time I drink champagne. So it definitely had its cultural moments, and this was one where I remember it being such a big deal that it was becoming a movie. This was it. This was the moment for book kids on Tumblr to get it together and go see this movie, and that was a really fun time. And maybe nostalgia is also kind of pulling on to me in certain ways when I talk about stuff like this. But that's okay. I said recently, I was like, I love nostalgia, and that's my girl, that's my friend. So I'm gonna be nostalgic. It's just how the cookie crumbles. Hopefully, though, this nostalgia doesn't follow me maybe too long. So I just got done saying it's my best friend, but anyways, moving on. We are going to leave the John Green stuff behind. I can't speak on the other adaptation. I think the only other one is, Looking for Alaska. Wow, why did I blank? But I think that's the only other adaptation. I don't think they've touched, oh, no, okay. There was that Let It Snow movie on Netflix. I don't think I've seen that, but that was adapted as part of a work that, he was a part of. But I do remember that movie. I think it was well received when it came out, but I personally have not seen it. So that might be to adventure into, perhaps, because I do remember I enjoyed that book overall. That's another one, part of my collection and stuff, but I don't think the other ones have been touched yet. So maybe in the future, that'd be kind of fun. Wouldn't that be fun to have that little renaissance and could bring back all the book was better t-shirts and all that shit. So anyways, we're moving along now, but I am kind of living in that YA young person realm, because my next one on here, which is probably, of course, everyone's maybe favorite adaptations, is the Hunger Games series, and those movies are just, they're fabulous. I think that's expected to be said. They're fabulous. I recently rewatched them, and wow, it's still the casting and the production and the vibes, and I do remember when I first saw the movies, it was a little different than how I had pictured, the districts and the capital and stuff, but they did such a good job that it has cemented as, the image of it all, and they're still such great movies. They still hold up, I think, today. There's something about it. The movies actually seem better now as an adult than I remember them being as a teenager. I remember liking them, of course, and I was on the craze, but as I revisit them as I gotten older, I have a new appreciation definitely for the story being told, the visuals, the actors, the portrayals, even the deviations from the books, I think still can in certain ways still make sense and such, and they're great. They're great, they hold up. I really adore them. I really think they're some fun times too. Well, as fun as I guess they could get, but they're good action movies in certain ways too, and the messaging, of course, is always relevant, and we see that time and time again that comparisons can be made across the board and such. So great one. Next, I'm once again living in that teenage me world. Well, this one I think I was a little bit younger. I was getting into my teenage years when this series was really big on the movie screen, but it is the Twilight Saga. That's probably another expected entry, especially with the sort of renaissance we all kind of went through, I think, in about 2020, especially with the release of Midnight Sun. The whole Twilight idea and the movies, the books, everything kind of came back into the zeitgeist, and they've really become, I hate to call them cult classics because they were huge at the time. Obviously, it was a crazy phenomenon. So I hate to say they're cult classics, but I think there has become a new sort of appreciation, whether that appreciation is in more humor or in more the cheesiness of it all. There is still there's fans and there's people who still really like these characters and they like talking about these characters and they kind of like the material. I mean, I certainly got my beef with the material, but I think the movies they may not always stand up, but I think I think everyone kind of has their favorites, and they kind of do have a place on this list of really good adaptations. They are beautifully well done. I'll never get over the sets, the color grading on the first film, of course, is something everyone I think talks about, and the second film too, because as she's going from Edward to Jacob, the colors of the whole thing change, the whole vibe changes, and you can kind of see that and stuff. And I think that is such well done storytelling, and it is evident that, especially the first book, it was made with such love. And I do wish they had kept the same director for them all, because I think that would have been so interesting to see what they came up with, because to me it felt like all this was. It was a job, but it was a labor of love as well, too. So I really love the movies. This is probably my only one, though, where I will say the books are better. I guess I just got done talking about my beef with the material, so maybe it is kind of a complicated relationship. I certainly have a complicated relationship with the Twilight books, but I will say the books are a little bit better in this instance. I think there's so much nuance with them and stories to explore, and they're pretty well written for the, like they were, Miss Meyer kind of knew what she was doing there. Which is crazy maybe, and people won't agree with that, but I do think the books are fantastic works of kind of that YA romance literature. But I think because of the movies, the books maybe don't get as much credit as possibly they deserve. I think everyone thinks of the movies first, and that's reasonable because that is kind of what is probably the most digestible to a wide audience. It's easy to watch a movie. It's not so easy sometimes to sit down with a 500, 600-page book. So I understand that. But I do wish more people would give the books a chance. But I understand the appreciation for the movies. And hey, I'm not one to turn my nose about them. Obviously, they're on this list. I just recently in February went to the movie theater and did an all-day Twilight marathon they were hosting, where it started at like 11 a.m. and ended at like midnight or something. And it was all day in the theater. I had a blanket with me. I had snacks, food. It was pretty packed too. Like a ton of people were coming in to do this all day movie marathon with their friends and stuff. And it was the best vibes. It was the best vibes. And I am so glad I did it. It was so much fun. So I definitely love them. I really enjoy like the cast and stuff. I think they portray the characters super, super well in some regards and others maybe not. But it's still a fun time, and it's still one I think about, and obviously I regularly revisit because I think they're good. I just kind of think they're good. So I'm actually going to jump around here on my actual list. I actually just edited my outline because I want to keep it into that sort of teenage me watching movies, because we will fall out of that. It will get a little bit more maybe kind of serious. No, I won't say that. I don't think it's going to be serious, but we're gonna jump around a little bit. But my next movie on this list is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Maybe that one is a little surprise. I don't know if I always hear that one come up in discussions about movie adaptations, and I do think sometimes the book and the movie kind of live their own separate lives in the just pop culture kind of realm. But I think the movie is a pretty well done adaptation, and I think it's amazing that the author could take his own work and write a screenplay and it actually like end up working out. That is something that it is such a different process to write a book versus a screenplay. So to be able to do that and to give something that's faithful to your work and not super obscure or too much going on or just not there, it is very admirable, and I think it made for a pretty dang good film. And I think the casting was very much I guess this is another one where the casting hasn't aged super duper well, but that's okay. We won't go into that anymore. I'm not going to name names, but it does still work out, and I think this one is kind of super, really the most maybe nostalgic, perhaps. I guess maybe tied with Fault in Our Stars, but it is a really kind of special, kind of low-key, and it really spawns from an era. This is another one where you could probably argue it's like a period piece, and it takes the work in a special way, and it is a very much sign of its times, perhaps, but from what I remember it all being, it was pretty well adapted from the original piece, and I really like that. I think it's good. It cuts what it needs to cut, perhaps, and the ideas and the lessons are still very much within it, which is, I think, the most important part. Is I would argue you want people who maybe they don't read your book, but they'll see the movie, to get kind of those same concepts that you're trying to speak. And I think that that really works well when you have like the best team behind you. So this definitely is a uh, admirable entry on here. Does it age well? I don't know if it. I might throw it out there that maybe it hasn't been aging well, but I won't speak too much on that because I could be completely off and everyone could be like, "You're too woke" or something. Maybe even not that, but I don't know. It's still a good one. It's still a good film, and it's, it's iconic. I guess I could dare to say it's iconic. So yeah. So that I think now takes us kind of into more of my. Well, actually, this takes me into, I guess, the Stephen King entry on this list, which I don't know if you were expecting that to be on here, but there are some Stephen King entries on my favorite movie adaptations of books. So the first one I have to say is The Mist. This one, maybe that comes as a surprise to anyone, and maybe that's not considered all the time when we talk about this topic, but I really thoroughly enjoyed The Mist. I enjoyed the movie, and I kind of enjoyed the book. I remember the book. Actually, this might be an instance where I enjoyed the movie a little more than the book. The movie does stray away from some elements of the book. I mean, the concept's all kind of there, but from what I recall about the book and the movie, there are, there's a little bit of differences, and I do think they kind of hold up in their own different ways. And the movie is one I keep returning to as its kind of piece of media. I think it's very, very scary. It brings in those good horror elements that you expect from a King book, and the mystique and the mystery of it, and the tension too of, a lot of it I got from both the book and the movie as these sort of ideas of how do people react when they're put into like these stressful like situations, especially like in this particular instance when they're all trapped in the supermarket. You see, elements of this person going off to do this and a group forming here and just this whole kind of thing, and that whole kind of idea, and I think that's really curious too and really kind of scary, and I think that is something that both the book and the movie, from what I recall, do very well. I do feel that this movie adaptation kind of adds to the story a bit. I think the directors kind of went, the direction they kind of went just went so well with it. And I will say the ending of the movie is one that is haunting. And it is one maybe you're not in for. And I do think this is another instance where it's, you can kind of have fans on either side of what's going on with it. But the ending is a very much, if you know kind of situation. Please go watch it. I do recommend The Mist. I think it is a good time, especially around Halloween. Of course, it's a fun time. I mean, I guess as fun as these scary movies can really get, but it is a fun time to do. So I do recommend that, and I do recommend maybe picking up the book. The book is very short. It's not super long. At least my copy, maybe it's formatted funny, but it's kind of a thinner book, not super long, and it's still a good read. Still kind of, I mean, you gotta like Stephen King, I guess, to really enjoy some of it. And if you've ever read any of his stuff, he kind of has a very specific way of writing stuff, and it's either, I think sometimes it's either you love it or you hate it, and there are certainly books that turn out better than others in these situations, but that's a good one for a read and a good one for a movie view. So see if you can pick up on the differences and such in between them. But now, moving on is to my next Stephen King entry, because of course there actually is a second one. I think the movie version of It, the 2017 movie version, is pretty dang good. I really adore this film. I have a lot of fun whenever I rewatch it. This could be because it was a product of its time, maybe. Because this was kind of like that heightened era of like kids doing like kids going through scary stuff, but I remember I still will rewatch it though, so I've definitely seen it beyond that sort of context, and I really enjoy it. I think it's a fun one. I have read it. It's been a while, I'll admit, but I was able to. I watched the movie before reading the book, and I saw the sequel too, but I think the sequel came out after I read the book. But I was able to pinpoint what was adapted, what was not. It is a very big book with a lot of stuff going in on it. So you got to really pick and choose what you're adapting, and you got to pick wisely with that book. It is a lot. It's be careful if you go into it, but from what I recall, the horror elements, the characters, the everything about that, it was, I think it translated pretty well to the movie scene. And of course, I think the casting also really makes this movie, especially since it is about like a group of friends. So that was, I thought, really well done. I thought it was also the sequel, the chapter 2 was also done super well. I just recently rewatched that one, and it does get a little bit out there, I think, but I think the cast really holds it together, and it's really fun in those ways. But one of my favorite adaptations, I would honestly say. I am pretty excited also that prequel is coming to HBO Max, the Welcome to Derry prequel. I think that's going to be really, really fun, and I'm hoping maybe this re-sparks kind of that interest in it and maybe the fandom aspects of it. I wasn't too into all that. I was a little bit older, I think, than that like age demographic of that fandom was, so I was a little out of it there, but I wouldn't mind if we all suddenly ended up back in our it era. So, and now moving on to, this will be the actual last one on my list here. This one is kind of, I think, scary. More of a thriller. It's more of a thriller. You all will know it immediately when I say it, and you're probably not surprised it's on this list, but Gone Girl. Gone Girl, one of my favorites. I will say I do prefer the book a little bit more than the movie, but that really boils down to just little details and little timeline things. But I love the vibe, the approach, the aesthetic, the casting, the shots. There are just some amazing just frames from this movie. It's a really good adaptation. And I had to study it actually for my film class in my senior year of high school. I picked it as like my big like whole semester research project. You had to pick one movie that you were going to like analyze and write about and everything, and I picked Gone Girl. And thank God, I think it was fantastic, and the cool girl monologue that lives in my head rent free 24/7. I think of it all the time when I guess I won't say when I think of it all the time, but just know there are instances where I'm out in public and I see what I think is maybe the cool girl, and it breaks my heart a little bit because it was a very, very good commentary on women and in relationships and men, and rough time, but I still love it. I still think it's such a phenomenal like film. I think it's got some of the best casting. It really brings everything sort of to life that it really needed to, and I think it's good. I do wish David Fincher would, possibly he could adapt other Gillian Flynn stuff, I think. I would like to see him. I know there's been other adaptations of her other books, and those are, I have some other opinions on those. They did not make the list here, but maybe that could be its own separate thing. But I think I would like to see him work more with, honestly, her materials and stuff, because Gone Girl was certainly, it was a moment in time. It was such a jaw-dropping kind of situation, and one I'll still rewatch, and I really like. So, well, that's my list. That's my list of favorite adaptations. I hope that was kind of fun to go through. I do have a little bit of like, I don't want to call them honorable mentions, but there's some adaptations that I am excited for and I liked, but okay. I do have an adaptation I'm going to predict will end up on this list if I ever make like a part 2 or something later in the year or whatever, but I am very excited for the movie adaptation of The Long Walk. This is another Stephen King one. I don't know if anyone I hope other people have read it out there. But The Long Walk it's a book about essentially 100 boys walk. Well, okay, it's a lot more convoluted than that, but they walk, and the last person to remain alive and walking wins like all this, like, it's basically set for life. They win all this money and such, and it's a competition basically. And it is a really interesting, it's much more, I think, interesting than I'm making it out to be. It's a very good book. I've read it, I think, in like one sitting. I remember it being like my summer book one year. I hunkered down and I was reading it. And it really plays with your idea, because, like, can you imagine just walking? You're just walking. You can't stop. You get like 3 seconds or something before you will be taken out, basically. It's really kind of it is gruesome in some ways, I think, but it is definitely more of a psychological, like, man, you just keep walking. And you see the dynamics with these boys and kind of how it wears on the body and the sort of structure of the society. It's a very good book, and I've been seeing the trailer for it. I've been going to the movies a lot, so I've been seeing the trailer for it before things, and it looks phenomenal. It looks good. I'm really excited about that one. I think that will possibly make, if I do a follow-up to this list, I do think that has the opportunity to make it on here. And then the other thing I wanted to just, as a brief mention, I recently saw The Life of Chuck. Well, recent as to when I was recording this. Not recent as when it came out, but I recently, as recording this, I saw The Life of Chuck, which is another Stephen King one. Wow, it's really the year of his adaptations, right? Because we also have like The Running Man coming out soon or something. But I recently, saw The Life of Chuck, and I thought it was phenomenal. I unfortunately have not read the short story yet, to the short story that accompanies it, to really see if it is a fair adaptation or not. I trust Mike Flanagan, the director, to abide by it. He seems very passionate about the story, so I do believe it's probably very accurate and very good, and in super great faith either way. So it was a phenomenal movie. I really, really give it such praise. I think everyone should see it. It is one I still am thinking about, and it kind of made me upset in the theater. I'll be honest. I definitely was shedding some tears and stuff. It is one that makes you think, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful, and I am going to make it a mission to go into reading that short story, and I believe that's part of a work of collections from King, and that will be my next sort of, hopefully, read. I'll fit it in there. My TBR is getting a little out of control right now, so but I do want to work and get it in there. But I wanted to add that one as a mention because I recently saw it, and I think it was very fantastic, and I hope it's a good kind of adaptation for fans of that sort of story. So, well, there we go. I hope you enjoyed this little walk of looking at movie adaptations. And as I said, please let me know, do you have any favorites? Do you have just thoughts on this? There are, a ton more out there that I either haven't seen the movie or I haven't read the book or something. So I know there's a ton more out there that people really recommend and stuff. And or maybe there's not any. Is there, are you someone who just hates it, will not watch any adaptation? What about TV series? Is there any TV series, limited series you think are pretty faithful to a piece of work? Ones you'd like to see? Well, maybe that'd be one I could do, is what I would like to see adapted into a movie or a series or something. So, but I'd like to hear from you too. Of course, always, you're the listener, and I like to engage in stuff like that. So really hope you enjoyed this. I hope it gave you something to think about. I hope this was just a nice little break in your day, perhaps even. So hope everyone does well. Have a good week, month, whatever, year, wherever, whenever you're listening to this or whatever. So thanks for listening, and keep on reading.